Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm CEO of Giraffe. I'm really, could you enable participant screen sharing? I'm really happy that you guys can join us. We've been working on a bunch of stuff ourselves, and then with Regrid, this really awesome product we've partnered to build and deliver. So let me share the screen so you guys can actually follow what's happening. And then we're underway. All right, hopefully you can see my screen. I've introduced myself. I'd love to get James and Sahana to introduce themselves as well, please.
Sure. My name's James. I am a fellow Aussie, but I'm here in the US running Giraffe sales and marketing with Maggie Lundy, who you probably received emails from in the US, and where I'm particularly pumped to be on this call and inviting Sahana to join us as we announce our Regrid partnership and the great features that it unlocks for our customers. So thank you, Sahana, for joining us. Why don't you tell the team a little bit about yourself and a little bit about Regrid, and then we'll get into it.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me. Hey everyone, I'm Sahana Murthy. I'm the Chief Product Officer at Regrid. I manage and oversee our products and marketing, and I'm so excited that our product, as a product manager, nothing gives you more joy than to see your product live in a high performant application, and to see this demo both last week and this week. I'm super pumped. I'm so glad that our data is being used in such a wonderful way, and it's actually offering a lot of value to your customers, to Giraffe's customers. So pumped to be here. Regrid, a little bit about us. We are a nationwide land parcel data and location intelligence company. What we've done is we've collected, curated, and standardized land parcel data across the country, over 3,100 counties, and we provide that in a nifty little standardized format to all of our customers for bulk licensing and via API. And you'll see some of that magic later today when James does a quick demo. Happy to be here.
Great, thanks, Sahana. And I echo that. Nothing brings me more joy than seeing it all come together.
Yeah.
Which it is. So that we'll get to that demo after I show analytics and a few other new features in Giraffe. So just to orientate, and this is something we sort of say ad nauseum, but what we're here to do is build better cities, to provide tools and data like Regrid, to help capital allocators or anyone who's making a decision about cities make really great decisions, combining people, projects, and information and data in a seamless process. So today we are going to go through various components, feature sets of our app, our increasingly powerful platform that is always oriented towards making better cities. So we'll go through Giraffe Analytics, which is our big launch, the Giraffe site. There's some good stuff on graphics as well, and a Precinct app. Then we'll dive into Regrid, followed by some questions. But please, if you do have questions, just pop them in the chat. Hopefully one of us will see them. Jimbo. All right. Again, another orienting slide. Giraffe is an early stage planning tool. And the current process, as you all know, is extremely disparate. Various experts doing various things. You're emailing brokers, agents, economists, architects, engineers. We're bringing it all together in one pipeline through site search, design, doing the numbers and analytics, through the apps, and through even to community engagement on the far right-hand side, where you take the digital assets that you've created in Giraffe and leverage them for marketing and engagement. Over the top of that, we're putting governance, and underneath that is data, is information. Really what Giraffe is a database of all your deals, your projects, whatever you describe them as well as your spatial information like Regrid. So what that means, what that ends up being, is a single source of truth, where you're combining your pipeline data, maybe things that are prospects or pursuits, opportunities that aren't even projects, as well as completed projects, and the information and the benchmark information and data from those projects can help you interpret and de-risk and accelerate decision making on new opportunities or the design phase of new projects. And one of the huge unlocks, which we think we've delivering now is the ability for you as a user to define your own logic, very much like Excel, like a spreadsheet, where you can use Giraffe to create your own formula to do your due diligence. So whether that's as simple as a financial pro forma that you have that you want to replicate in Giraffe and tie to the digital model, or we've got clients who are using it to do economic analysis, demographic, environmental analysis, in terms of canopy cover, floodwater discharge. Any quantitative analysis can be done in analytics. And what this means is that you're able to build custom logic, custom app, distribute it to your organization very, very quickly. It looks like this. It looks like rows, like a spreadsheet. So I want you to think of a spreadsheet as we go into it, where you've got formula, units of measure, things are in dollars or dwellings or persons or square meters. It's very mathematical, so we'll get our left brain, I think it is, activated and use it to analyze the sort of creative right brain stuff. Okay. As I go, you'll see there's been some graphic updates, which I'll call out at the same time. I'm gonna demo in Australia, so apologies to the Americans amongst us that you'll have to do the mental conversion from meters to feet, or just let it wash over you. One feature that we've just launched as well is layer templates, which I'm going to utilize now. So I'm using New South Wales layer template here, which is bringing all the data that I consistently use in my home state of New South Wales directly into a new project.
Just on the square footage stuff, Rob, it does work in both imperial and metric.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, of course. Yeah. Sorry. Yes. No, it not only does it work in imperial and metric, but it will suggest the right, if you create a project in the US, it will create it in feet. So I've created a new project and I'll save it. And then I'll dive into analytics. And I love doing this because it just shows you, when we started, what we wanted was this 1 hour DA or application to go from 0 to a full, application in 1 hour. We're not there yet, but we're getting pretty close. So if we say we've acquired these sites, I'm going to start designing a precinct. And I'm using the keyboard shortcuts here, so apologies if I'm going fast. I'm using R to create rectangles, and then I'm using the E key to pop the number of levels up. So I'm going to do a strip of retail there and some residential over here. And so you can see that this is the classic Giraffe use case. And as I'm working, the urban tab, which you're used to, is filling out. So I'm getting all the data that our Giraffe team, from our experience of working in industry, know that you need in terms of FARs or FSRs, maximum heights, open space per person, site coverage, etc. What analytics allows you to do as a user is basically to create your own analytics tab. So rather than this sort of pre-baked Giraffe urban tab, or the financial tab, which is purely focused on hard costs, soft costs, and dollars, you can create whatever analytics you want. Now, what Jez on our team has done, which is incredible, is he's given some templates which you can just click to start off with. I'm actually going to start from scratch, and I'll show you the template stuff in a second. What this means, though, is that if you have a repeated type of analytics to do, once it's done, you can bring it into any other project without having to start from scratch. It's never, once it's done, nothing's ever wasted. And that pipeline that I described earlier of Giraffe being built on a data foundation really starts to shine. So we'll start with a blank slate, and I'm going to do a simple build to sell pro forma here. The first thing I'm going to pull out is the built form. I'm going to create that category, make it a nice building colored brown. And that's just given us a heading. That's all a category is a heading. And within each category are measures. And what a measure is a line item. So think of it as almost like a row in Excel. It's not exactly analogous, but it will appear in the report as a row. And I'm just going to pull into my analytics tab the total dwellings. It's going to be measured in dwellings. So I'm going to create a new unit of measure called dwellings, and I'm only going to apply this to residential. So I can actually filter which model elements this measure is looking at. And now sort of the most novel part of analytics this is a concept which doesn't exist in something like Excel. We need to connect the formula, the measure, to the Giraffe model, the 3D model. And the way we do that is with a component that will form part of the formula down here. So that A is going into the formula. And we use this property type. So you can have different types of components, which I'll get to in a second. Property components refer to the model. So I'm going to dive into the Giraffe model and I'm going to pull out the total dwelling count. And what Giraffe is telling me is there's one feature here which has the dwelling count property, right? And my formula is just going to be A. So I'm just going to get the total dwelling count and return that number, right? So it's a very simple formula. Just take whatever it is and pass it. I save those changes and I have my first measure, right? Total number of dwellings is 344. And you can see now, if I change the residential, the number of dwellings falls. If I change the retail area, this blue representing retail, the number of dwellings doesn't change because there's no dwellings in the retail. So this measure is connected to the model, the Giraffe model, in a very intelligent way. And that's what I've shown you now is the essential foundation to analytics. And now we just build and build, right? So we can store data in Giraffe, as you know, in things like usages. So you can have hard costs, soft costs per usage or typology. We've built this new table for you to edit them very rapidly and see them all at once. But this is exactly the same as editing the usages from the usage editor, which is in the top left. And you can see here I've got hard costs and soft costs. And as you would probably know already, we store price data on the usage level. So you can have, for example, a premium residential, a standard residential, and an affordable residential. You could store different prices per usage. But with analytics, the way that you store, manipulate, and represent information becomes incredibly flexible. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new measure that's just a constant. And I'm going to say average dwelling price. So I'm doing a very simple analysis here. That's going to be in dollars. And it's just going to be a constant. And I'm going to say, this is Sydney. So we're going to sell apartments for about $800,000. Save changes. And now I can create a new measure, which is total sale value. And I'll put that resi, which will again be in dollars. And in this component, I'm going to refer to previous measures. So the two measures that I've defined are the total dwellings. I'm going to add another component, which is the average dwelling price. And I'm just going to go A times B. So the total number of dwellings times the average dwelling price. And I'm going to save that change. You can see there how simple it is to build up quite complicated analytics that are beautifully tied to the model. What I'll show you now is the power of this when you start using templates. So I'll draw another project just next to the project we did. Save it as a new project and call it project 2. And this time, rather than building up the pro forma or the analytics tab from scratch, I'm just going to bring in a template. So in less than a minute, I'm going to get a fantastic pro forma. So let's say this is more of a residential, just a pure residential development, something like that. The little park in the front. Beautiful. Now, if I go to analytics and I load my build to rent pro forma, you can see a far more detailed analysis that's been built. This is not as detailed as you can go. You can go into the hundreds of lines, no problem. But here we're doing built form where we've got some retail. You know, we're imagining mixed use. So if I put in some retail over here, you'll see that. But we're allowing for an apartment vacancy factor, a retail vacancy factor, expense ratios, rents, net operating income, down through a detailed breakdown of costs, where we're looking at hard costs, financing costs, contingencies and fees as percentages of those, a cap rate and stabilized return on costs. So all of the metrics that you love to use or you understand in the way that you want to see them. So the unlock here is you can build these yourself very, very quickly. You saw I built one with 3 in about 5 minutes. And once they're done, they're done. As in you can distribute them amongst your team, even across your enterprise, to massively accelerate and standardize and de-risk that analytics. That's a quick introduction to analytics.
Maybe, Rob, I have a question for you, or something to throw in is, part of the reason we built this is because everybody we speak to has a different way that they conduct their feasibilities or their pro formas or a slightly different use case. And so we, part of the reasoning behind why we built this is to allow your users or your administrators to not just recreate your spreadsheets that you have in a very dynamic way that look and feel exactly like yours, but then also to offer the ability to standardize processes within an organization. And that's can be quite powerful if that's not been done before, or if that's been done in an Excel form, where Excel is obviously a great tool, but also prone to breaking and a lot of manual data entry.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Jimbo. And I think in terms of that audit and that ability to communicate what the model is doing behind the scenes, just a level of our commitment to that. If I hover on an output, it'll tell me what the unit is, what the formula is, which usages it's getting it from, and even tell me what inputs are. So it's kind of like this trace back, so that anyone can you always have that ability to show how you're working or what you're working with and what your assumptions are under the hood. So standardization, distributing it and scaling it across an enterprise, and then being able to, introduce people to what you're doing without hiding it is absolutely critical. Exactly. Look, I'm going to show you the Precinct app, and then I'm going to hand over to Regrid, which is also really cool. So, I get excited, and I could talk about features for a long time. Precinct is an app that does something very complicated, very, very simply. What it does is, if you have a project which has multiple sub precincts or sub parcels, and those precincts could represent stages of delivery, say, or stages of going to market. They could actually represent the end result of a subdivision. They could represent different precincts. What Precinct app does is it allows you to define sub precincts as lots. You give them, or parcels, you give them a lot number, and then you can draw designs on top of those lots. So you can see here, I've got these 3 parcels, and you can imagine roads connecting Lennox and Water Lane here. And then I've basically got 3 separate developments. And not only do I have 3 separate developments, I actually have 2 scenarios. So I've got 6 separate developments, the 3 for scenario 1, and then another 3 for scenario 2. And what Precinct is doing over here is it is looking at the lots, returning the lot area, and then returning the areas, the building coverage, and the FAR per subparcel dynamically. And then it's doing that per scenario. So on the right-hand side, you're actually seeing all of those scenarios simultaneously. And obviously, like everything in Giraffe, if I update one of the areas, everything updates. And I guess that the magic bit here is, if I move a building from one parcel to another, you will see that the number the area moves from one parcel to another. So incredibly powerful. I'll do that again. So currently in lot number 3, which is this one over here, we've got a whole bunch of commercial plus this 4,000 square meters of residential. And if I grab that residential and pop it back on lot 1, you'll see it goes back to lot 1. So you're able to very quickly figure out how to stage and unroll developments. Generally, we see this used at scale, so at either the precinct, or the metropolitan scale. But for any site of size, this becomes an amazing way of thinking about staging and subdividing stuff. So that's also available via our app store. And whilst I've been talking, hopefully you've been enjoying the new graphics that the guys have created with the shadows, the outlines of the buildings. I was an ex-architect, and so graphics are very important to me. And just this strong graphical representation is something we've been refining for a long time.
Rob,
I think I will now.
Before we move on, I think we've got 4 more minutes that we can either do questions or look at other use cases. I don't know if you want to show or have available to show a zoning use case for those government clients or consultant clients that are on the phone or on the call. If you've got something to show, I think that'd be really powerful, just to show a different perspective on the same feature set.
Yes, that's a good reminder. Okay, so I think the thing to understand here is Giraffe often looks like a building editor, as in you're often creating real things, parks, roads, buildings. But really what Giraffe is a line editor. And so the geometries in Giraffe can represent anything. And one of the things they can obviously represent is zoning envelopes. So you can see what I've done here is I've created a zoning scenario where this is an R1 zoning and this is an R3. And if I go and show you the assumptions of, say, R1, it's got a target FSR or FAR, a maximum height, hardscape, softscape. So most of the instruments that strategic planners use when they're constructing zoning ordinances. And then what the analytics is doing is taking those, and then I've applied them to the map in a very simple way. And you can see I've cheated here. I've right-clicked on the existing zoning, I create it, and then I assign it the new zoning I want to. So I've just called this one R2. And in my analytics, I've used the exact same methodology that I showed you before, where I've created measures with equations that refer to the assumptions and usages in the model to look at and analyze this zoning. And this, I think, is just a testament to how flexible analytics is. So here I'm looking at things like total residential area, and you can see this is in the hundreds of thousands of square meters, which would be the millions of square feet, because what we're looking at is the area of the zoned, the area of the zoned precinct multiplying by its FAR to get, or its FSR to get your residential area, without understanding what that area looks like. So we're thinking like planners at this point. We don't want to get caught up in geometry of individual buildings. But with even at this level of information, the amount of analytics that we can pull out and to understand the impact that we're going to have on the city, it's enough, because those buildings will, if built to maximum zoned area, which they will be, that's what developers do, will provide this area. And so then you can say, look, if the average dwelling size is 100 square meters, we can start modeling things out in terms of population. So by putting out a persons per dwelling, tax spend, local economic impact. So for any government clients in the call, this is the kind of thing, the kind of report that we see time and time again, where you're trying to analyze or decide between, say, this scenario 1 and this scenario 2, and mediate between competing interests, whether it's local business, parking requirement, open space. Having these kind of analytics where you can just define some metrics that shed light or provide insight into what you're doing, relevant either to that project or to your department, and then change them and access them and fiddle with them live. So I can just change that to R4 and completely update the model is extremely powerful. And I know there are a whole bunch of other increasingly unique ways of applying analytics. So you could be doing floodwater analysis or footfall for retail studies. Sort of any number of disciplines can make use of this tool, just like Excel. Any office, any discipline is using Excel.
Awesome, thank you, Rob. I just had a user on the Q&A ask a question. The question is, this looks like a fairly complex set of features. Is this something you imagine all users to get into and customize?
That is a great question, and the answer is no. So I think what's amazing about this feature set is you're going to get two functions of the organization in the same software. So what we see time and time again, be it at developers, government consultants, you have people that are doing planning, so urban designers, even strategic planners, architects drawing, and then you have finance departments doing numbers, or analytics departments, quantity surveyors, estimators. And they're operating in different softwares. So the interface between them is generally an email where someone says, hey, can you send me the areas? And they pull the areas out of their CAD or BIM model and send it to the finance department. the way we see this working extremely successfully now is that the finance department set up template projects. They sort of only use Giraffe to create these kind of analytics and measures, and then they share them as templates with the design team that really never go into it. They don't look at the formula. They have confidence that the formula have been set up and audited, and when they bring it in, they have confidence that it's going to work reliably. It's not like Excel where you don't know if you've put the input in the right bit. It all comes in a standard, controlled, auditable way. And so you can actually both lean into your area of expertise within that common data environment. And I think that's the magic. So some people love using both, but not everybody. And the tool is designed to empower both kinds of users and basically eliminate the really scrappy communication between the two, which is via phone calls, texts, and emails.
Very cool. We've probably got 1 more or 2 more minutes for questions. If anyone would like to throw them into the thread, now is the time to do so. Rob, any other use cases you want to call out whilst we're just waiting for any more questions that might come through?
Yeah, I think a big one here in Sydney is, sorry, I'm on the dev branch, okay, so I need to go back to here. A big one here in Sydney is rain. It was the environmental impact of cities. Okay, so we're talking about urban heat island, solar, floodwater absorption. Like, I don't know, Australians on the call will know we've sort of got a massive new amount of floods, biggest floods, I think, ever. And so making sure that we analyze the city from that perspective is super important. And analytics is extremely powerful at that, because if you're talking about gigaliters of water, or the absorption rate per grass, or the number of kilowatt hours or kilowatts per solar panel, those kind of engineering numbers, which is what this environmental analysis is, can be handled massively effectively by analytics, because it's just quantitative analysis. So we're seeing that in terms of calculating things like canopy coverage as a percentage, runoff, etc. I would that's the exciting use case to me, top of mind at the moment. But as I say, every time we speak to someone, we find a new use case, basically, whenever there's a new expert.
Cool. Well, we didn't get any more questions, so I think you must have done a great job presenting the full breadth of analytics.
Yes.
Wait, we have Samuel Austin asking, can we see the urban heat tree canopy cover feature? Or heat tree canopy cover.
Let me create one here very, very quickly. So it ships as a template. So I'll draw the boundary. Now we're thinking about urban heat island here as a regulator. So the tools that a regulator has are relatively blunt. We do have solar analytics and wind analytics, and some people working on some proper analysis tools like that. What we're thinking of here is reducing urban heat island to a target canopy cover percent. So you do some studies, you figure out if an area has 20% canopy cover, then urban heat island is reduced. So then the question is, what is the percentage of canopy cover for my development? So I'm just going to load this environmental template. And you can see here, I've got my canopy cover percentage, my landscape percentage, my landscape area. So nothing very complicated here, as in we're just counting up the trees, we're working out their area, and we're dividing it through by the site area. So we're just using sort of relatively simple mathematics, but applied at scale in order to work out these metrics. So that one ships, that environmental template that I've just done. If you want more, if you have an idea or a need, please do reach out to me directly. I'd love to talk about that use case.
All right, cool. Well, I might take over, Rob. If you want to share, give me permission to share the screen, I will take over.
Fantastic.
What we're going to show next is something that relates specifically to our US customers that we're really excited about. And this is the ability to see any parcel in the US, understand the tax data behind it, but then importantly, use that to drive queries or filters that you might have around sites that match a certain description. And again, we've tried to engineer this in a way that speaks to our four core users, being architects, engineers, and consultants, developers, government users, and brokers who are out there scouting for sites. Everyone has a sort of different reason, but oftentimes the functionality is the exact same way. So as we were looking for a solution, we were passed Regrid's information. I had the opportunity to meet with Sahana and Steve and a few others on the team, and they have this data. And so we got quite excited, and not only do they have it, but they're a great company. They have a great vibe that really matches with our vision of what we're trying to build as a company and what we're trying to shape in the market. And so we built a partnership together on their data, which is fantastic. So Sahana, appreciate you sitting through 33 minutes of Giraffe. I'd love it if you could share a snapshot of the Regrid data set and why it's so flippin' awesome and why we're so excited to partner with you.
Yeah, absolutely. I believe you have the slide deck, James,
yep, let me pull
but I
that
can
up.
just talk through this. So, and likewise, we feel the same way working with you and the Giraffe team. It's been an absolute pleasure. And congratulations on the launch. Your product is incredible. I love it. And my product team also conveyed the same thing last week after they saw the demo. So yeah, Regrid, we are, like I said, a nationwide land parcel and location context data company. We've been collecting, curating, and standardizing land parcel data one county at a time for the past few years. And we now have over 152 million parcel records and geometries. So we deal with spatial data as well, right? So it's a combination of spatial data and the associated tax assessment tabular data that comes from the counties. We cover about over 99% of the US population. We have about 3,100 and counting counties. We have standardized this into what we call our own, we've designed our own standardized schema. So every time we collect it, we have to curate it, clean it, standardize it. So this is data at scale, right? So anywhere in the country you access our parcel data, it should be easy to ingest and start working with because we have done the hard work of cleaning and standardizing the data. We have over 120 attributes in our schema, and we've been collecting and curating more attributes and adding more enhanced location context information like nationwide normalized land use codes, for instance, which are multidimensional. So sometimes this information is not readily available from the data that we get from the county. So we've done some of the grind work in kind of adding that additional layer of enhanced location context that isn't otherwise available with this data set in its raw form. We have all of the US, we have most of the US territories, including Puerto Rico and US Virgin Islands. We've had a significant coverage map expansion in the past year and a half alone. We added 50 counties just in the past 2 months. We are kind of in the race to get to almost all of them. And we keep them current. A lot of this is really tireless work because it's about keeping the data, it's collecting, standardizing, cleaning it, ground truthing it, and keeping the data current and keeping it updated. So we do, round robin monthly updates. We have a persistent unique ID, UUID that stays stable across updates and allows disparate data sets to be joined and matched seamlessly. And that's kind of what we did recently by joining our data with match building footprints as well. Next slide, James. And this data, we provided with all your usual suspects, secure FTPs. We can deliver it into your cloud buckets. We provide this data in a RESTful API format. And because this is spatial data, we also provide raster and vector tiles. So if you are, some of which, you might see in the demo later, at least the API piece, but yeah, it's compatible with all map layers and mapping platforms. And this is one end of our product suite. We also provide our data as a mapping platform, as a SaaS platform where the parcel data is the base layer and you can do other GIS projects on top of it. So yeah, that's a little bit about Regrid. You know, because of how foundational parcel data is, we've actually been able to find our bearings in the market with across all verticals. You know, construction and real estate being a significant one out of them, but we've seen that most people that are working in location data need parcel data. And we've it's just our style is to be totally transparent about how we work, how much data we have, what data we don't have, and you know, how we list and price them. So that kind of keeps us going. But that's a little bit about Regrid, our product, our data. Any questions are welcome, but yeah, it's a lot of data engineering, it's a lot of data cleaning, and we love it.
Awesome. Thank you, Sahana, and thank you for taking us through Regrid. I think it's important, you know, whenever a data product is on show in our platform, we like to point back to the source because we are not data people. We want to partner with great data people, and that's what we found with you. So thank you again for being a partner, and thanks for sharing a little bit. That's awesome. So what I'm going to show is exactly what Sahana was talking about, but how that then relates through to the use cases that everybody knows Giraffe for, and what Rob was talking about with analytics, and start to explore how those two create a mind meld and open up some pretty wild use cases. So we're looking here in Houston, and if I zoom out of Houston, I'm actually looking at all the oil wells just outside of Houston. There's obviously this great little section of oil over here out of Houston, but it's also where a lot of the industrial land is. So what we're looking at here is the combination between Regrid's data set, which is this colored blue data set in the background with all of the parcels, but then also about 20 different GIS layers that we've drawn from the city of Houston. So transport networks, all the districts and their subdivisions, Houston's water supply, so we could see, you know, all of the locations of manholes and water lines, etc., along with all the additional planning information. And this, I'm just showing this to show you that the parcel data is the foundation of obviously this industry, because it is the physical assets that get bought and sold. But there's so much more data that can be visualized and often is needed to be visualized when we're making a decision about where to put capital, or how this is going to affect constituents if we change a piece of policy or whatever else we might be trying to consider. So firstly, we see all this data in one place, and one of my favorite things about this integration is I can just start clicking on things and get some more information. So for instance, this little guy over here, if I want to understand who owns it, what it was last sold for, how big it is, what the tax value is, all I need to do is just click on it and, you know, point and click. As opposed to analytics, which is an advanced feature set, this is designed for every single user to be able to get value from. So as I learn about sites, or as I find them to be interesting to me, I can add them to my shortlist, and then I can do a couple of different things with them. So you can see down here, I'm building up this table of sites. Now, some people at this point use it as a tool to do market analysis. So they might click around a bunch of sites that they've heard about at the pub and ingest it into Giraffe, into one big project, and classify them as sites that are worth pursuing. Others at this point say, okay, actually there's way too much information here. Help me filter through what I'm seeing to find stuff that's interesting to me. And this is where we can use our filter criteria on the right-hand side to search through these parcels. Now we can do a nationwide search based on certain criteria that scales to the whole nation, like owner details and that sort of thing. But when we're in a specific area, often we want to say, okay, well, let's just filter the noise that we see right here and use our eyes to pass the information. So probably the most common use case that I see is, all right, well, we're building a certain kind of project, and I need to have a site that's either minimum this size or maximum this size or between this band of total square footage. So I'm just going to chuck that in here. I'm going to say, show me all the sites that are bigger than 10,000 square feet and smaller than 25,000. And you can see, I'm actually going to leave the max for now because that's actually done exactly what I wanted. I can now see all the sites that are corresponding with this band that we've created. And maybe we want to dive into, say, this one right here. And I'll add it to my selection. I'll get rid of the other one because it's not relevant anymore. And I'm going to create a new project and dive right into it. I'm actually going to come back to this in a second. So it's busy creating that project in the background. I'm going to show how we can do some zoning analysis the way Rob was showing us as well. And now we've got this parcel here. We've got all the metadata that's attached itself to the project, like who the owner was and its taxable value and that sort of thing. And now I can start doing my analyses as Rob was showing. Now, a few releases ago, we also released a what we call a design library. And that design library allows me to go to any historical project and draw the elements out of it that are interesting to me. Think of things like maybe it was an analytics pane that we drew, like an industrial pro forma, or maybe it was a building that we designed that we liked the templatable shape of it, and we know we just need to find as many sites that are over 10,000 square feet that I can drop that building footprint on and see if it works. So I can just do that. I've got the shape, I've searched for it. I'm going to go to the design library. I'm going to bring up my templates. I'm going to grab the skyscraper that I like. It's going to say to me, do you want to bring in all of the assumptions that pin with this building? And my answer, of course, is yes. I want to know the costs. I want to know the any deeper analysis that we applied to the building. And then boom, I can test it against the site, decide very quickly whether it's going to work or not. I can have a quick look at my return on cost, decide, no, this is never going to work. I need to go back to the drawing board. So the ability to go and test parcels to meet a certain criteria, whether that's for a development use case or for a zoning use case, is rapid, because I can draw down from any of my comparable projects that I've done in the past, throw it on the site, and then move on and rule that site out. And there are some great back-end governance things that we might show you in a later release that relate to being able to then go ahead and classify some of those sites as well. Now, if we were doing that same process, but to look at the impact to policy decisions, and again, I'm no government planner, but I got quite excited when I uncovered this use case. We can take the same batch of features and do exactly what Rob showed by using the zoning template in the analytics tab. But this time I might want to use the filter of the zoning code to identify the parcels that I want to select and then do a comparative study on. Now, I'm in a particular city that doesn't have a formal zoning code, which is Houston. So Sahana, what's a good location where I could find some great zoning? I think
New York is always a good one.
All right, let's zoom up to New York. So if we were just zoom in, and this talks to the power of how good this data set is, I can just basically go anywhere in the country and start to get some interesting data. I can do my map search. See, there's some beautiful data. And now I can say, okay, show me all the parcels that have R8 zoning. And I'm actually going to grab these. I'm just going to add these 4 here, and we'll do our zoning study on these 4. So you can see I'm just clicking on them and saying add to my selection. And then I'll say add to current project. Now I'm going to do my group select. I'll turn regrid off because we don't need it anymore. Assign a land use to it. In this case, it's R1. There's my little R1. And we can call this our, this is our scenario 1. And there's our zoning use case from before. And now if I wanted to add another scenario, I can add it on a new layer, call it scenario 2. And again, we'll just select those parcels, copy, paste, except now it's not R1 anymore. I want it to be on scenario 2. And I want to define what R2 is, or maybe in this, hypothetical R3. I can go through and I can set my target FSR to 2 to 1. I can change my allowable height to 45 feet. Hit save. Maybe even change the color just so we know exactly what's going on. And I should be able to see that right now, and I don't know why I can't. Rob, did you see what I missed? Maybe scenario 2 is off.
Sorry, I was on mute. You can see scenario 2 over there on the right-hand side.
We can. Beautiful.
Yeah.
And now we can compare the two as we just did. We drew one, we visualized the other, and we've got that comparative analysis done. So that's part of the magic of being able to jump around very quickly, find parcels, either throw down some studies on it that we've done previously, draw our own study from scratch, or do a zoning uplift or something like that, the interplay between the regrid dataset and the Giraffe functionality is extraordinarily powerful, and this is why we're really excited about it for our US customers. So I'm going to pause there and see if there are any other questions. We've got one on the line asking, can we get a recording of this session? Answer of that is definitely. It's being recorded and it'll be shared on LinkedIn and to all the attendees of the session via an email afterwards. Any other questions that people might have, or Rob, Sahana, anything you think I missed that I should dive into quickly?
I did have one question on the analytics product.
Sure, go for it.
Wait. Okay, all right. So there's so much of data right there, but do you still find people exporting it as a CSV and then continuing the assessment in a CSV format?
Yeah, no, we definitely do. And analytics exports the data in a number of shapes. Like you can get the CSV can be, organized by usage or building and broken down into subcomponents. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think, the Giraffe always wants to have a no wall between it and the other software that an enterprise is using. So hit it with the API, download it as a CSV. If you're not getting the data in the shape you want, we just add it when people ask for it. So yeah, always built to export. Same with you could even export, every project is a GIS file. It's a GeoJSON, so it can be exported into ArcGIS, a GIS or Q, whatever.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Good question, Sahana. I think that philosophy of being able to pull data in from anywhere and pass it out anywhere is core to who we are, and part of why we love partnering with great data providers.
Yeah.
Rob, I don't know if you want to speak to any more of the roadmap or things that are coming, or if that's all proprietary and we want to keep it secret. We're probably getting close to time, but maybe a little sneak peek of something.
So what the team's working on at the moment is enhancing the enterprise permissions stuff. So creating teams, templates, audit trails. If we've got users that have thousands of layers and tens of teams with hundreds of people within them, and those layers are highly sensitive. The projects are highly sensitive. So being able to securely share the data with the right people and have confidence that you're not leaking it out and being able to track that is a core focus for us. The other one that I'm very excited about, and most people on the call probably won't know this, but Rhino Grasshopper is a parametric scripting engine to create generative design, which is I grew up on. I love that software, and we are building a version of that within Giraffe, which will allow, similar to analytics, allows you to do quantitative analysis. This tool that we are building will allow you to do generative geometric design. So things like assign mullions onto a building or array car parks along a road, or create an avenue with trees along the side at specific intervals. Those kind of semi-generative geometric design, which is a bit longer. It's a bit more complicated, but it's also very exciting to me, a product person.
Awesome. That was more than I thought you would share.
We're open. I think should we call it? If there are no final questions, I'd like to wrap.
That'd be great.
And yeah, thank you, Sahana, for your time. It was awesome. It's been awesome working with you, and thank you for taking the time to present. I think that demo is just flying from Houston to New York and doing a zoning analysis. It's just so awesome seeing these two systems operating in concert. And thanks, Jimbo. And thanks, everybody. It will be available as a recording, as James said, sent directly to you, but you can also see it on LinkedIn. So thank you, and we'll close.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
Bye.